Welcome once again here to the Coach's Box here on 91.1 FM, The Globe. My name is Paul Condry along with Coach Ron Hecklinski. Welcome to Legends Season number 2, Episode 3. We are blessed beyond compare to have these two guys with us here today across the table here. Say hi to everybody out there in TV land, to Greg Humnicky. And here to my immediate right, we want to say thank you to our longtime friend Ben Karasiak. And we're thrilled, about this show because this Legends gig is taking on a lot of traction. It's getting a lot of views on our Regional Radio Sports Network YouTube channel as well as our website. But two guys who I've had a chance to work with. And I remember when we started Regional Radio Sports in the early 90s, I remember coming to South Bend and hanging out with Greg and getting a chance to know him. We had just started our weekly magazine, The Sports Report, and collaborating with him. And Ben was really part of the initial group when we started doing Penn football on Regional Radio Sports back in the early 90s. First it was Dave Reiser, then it was Ben. And we've been blessed to have a great relationship with both Greg and the South Bend School Corporation as well as everybody here at Penn. So I'm thrilled to have two guys who I'm going into year 35. These guys have played a pivotal part of my growth and my development, and I owe them a tremendous amount of gratitude. You have a different set of scenarios because you know these guys because you grew up here, and you've known them, especially Ben, because Ben was on your brother's coaching staff in Marion and won 3 state championships.
Yeah, so no, this is a really special time for me to be able to sit down here and chat it up with these two guys because, they were part of my growing up. Maybe I was 18, 19 years old. In the summertime, I worked with Ben. We worked for the city, driving around, fixing up places, and so I've known Ben my whole life. Greg Humnicky was the park director at Vorty Park, and my whole family hung out at Vorty Park. Booty hung out there, my sister Claudia, my little sister Mary Ellen. I'm not sure if my brother Donnie was the maintenance guy when you were working there, but he was the maintenance guy at Vorty Park and had a great bed made in the wheelbarrow with hoses there and slept every day there while he was supposed to be on the clock.
It drew a paycheck.
Yeah, no, and Ben and I have known each other forever, and Greg too, and hearing stories about, their jobs and how they, came to be the athletic director at Penn, the athletic director at Clay. When I've known Greg as a basketball coach, I thought Greg was going to be a head basketball coach, and I've known Ben as an assistant football coach. I thought Ben was always going to be a head football coach. Coming from Rock Valley, playing at Evansville, my brother Donnie told me when he was pitching at St. Joe and you were playing at Central, you hit a little dribbler up the right or up the first baseline, and Donnie goes to pick it up. He's going to tag you because he knows you. You're a great guy. You run him over like a freaking bulldozer. And Donnie goes, Benny! And you go, it's ball, man.
Yeah, no.
It's ball. Come on.
He threw at me twice before that happened, so I had to get back.
I knew there was something, man. I knew there was something.
So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to spend some time with Ben Karasiak and Greg Humnicky. We ask that you stick around for more as we are broadcasting live tonight from Beef O'Brady's in beautiful Granger, Indiana. We'll be back with more right after this on Regional Radio Sports. Welcome once again here on Regional Radio Sports. I'm Paul Condry along with Coach Ron Hecklinski. We welcome you to Legends version number 9 if you're counting at home or keeping score. Season 2, Episode 3 here. Once again, it's a privilege. To my immediate right, I've got some notes I wanted to share with our audience to just kind of talk about Ben Karasiak. Grew up, went to South Bend LaSalle High School, part of one of the most incredible athletic dynamics. We'll get to talking about that momentarily. But he was a great football player, defensive MVP, 2-time all-league performer. Of course, went off to Rock Junior College, University of Evansville. Not only was he a tremendous college athlete, but also he's in the Evansville Hall of Fame. He's in the Indiana Football Hall of Fame with yours truly. That's cool. He was there before I was. And a 3-time state champion with your brother, Mike. That's an awesome experience. But he was also at Mishawaka Marion. Now, Greg Humnicky across the table here. He's a product of South Bend Central High School. He played basketball at Central. He's a Purdue grad, 40 years as a member of the South Bend Community School Corporation. For the first 20 years, he was a social studies teacher and a high school boys basketball coach at Central, Adams, and Clay. 20 years as the AD. That's where he and I got a chance to know each other. But he's also a member of the South Bend Alumni Association Board of Trustees. Very, very actively involved in the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame as a part of the board of directors. And, of course, we're thrilled to have both of these guys here with us. So now that our audience has got a chance to know them, heck, I know that you'd like to get the party started. And who you going with first?
Well, I'm going to go with Benny first. So, Ben, I mean, obviously athletics was a big part of your life, playing and coaching. And we talked about this a little bit off the air, but I always thought you were going to be a head football coach somewhere down the road. Did that opportunity, ever present itself to you, or did you just not want to go in that direction?
No, it never presented itself to me. I was not interested in being a head football coach. But really, my number one love is baseball. I became a head baseball coach at Marion High School, was there for 5 years, coaching their varsity team, and I never had any real interest in being a head football coach. I just love baseball.
When you left Marion, were you an assistant football coach? Because I think you went to Elkhart from Marion.
Yes.
Right?
No, I was an administrator at Elkhart. Didn't do any coaching.
Really?
Couldn't. I was an assistant principal. I started as an assistant principal, and then 7-8 years later became the vice principal at Memorial High School.
So administration has always been a part of what you wanted to do.
Right. When I was at Marion, and I cherish those years because I wore a number of different hats. They gave me a lot of opportunities. I was the athletic director, teacher coach, athletic director, dean of students, assistant principal. So all those things helped me move into public education as an administrator.
Also a head wrestling coach.
A lot of people don't know that. For 2 years.
Yeah, so I mean, think about all the sports he's been involved in during the course of his career. It's amazing.
Well, my brother Donnie can attest to that, running down the first baseline and trying to bowl you over, and you guys like a wrestling match. And Greg, so I remember you coming up as an assistant basketball coach.
Right.
And back in those days, those were the golden days of South Bend basketball.
For sure.
And I think you were always a part of great staffs. Talk about some of those staffs that you were on.
Well, I started out as a 5th and 6th grade coach at Studebaker and got to work with Don Coddens his first year at Riley High School. Then I went to Lincoln Junior High as well, which was in the Riley district. Then when they closed Central High School in 1970, I moved downtown, and it became the 9th grade program for LaSalle High School. They, in a sense, merged the two schools. Although kids that lived east of Michigan Street went to Adams. That's where Jimmy Webb ended up at John Adams. And worked with George Lanakis and George Griffith at LaSalle. And I had the honor of coaching David Maglia as a freshman at Central. Won a couple of league championships in a freshman tournament, which is a pretty big deal back then because we had like a 10 or 12 team conference and was able to win a couple things there. And I had a chance to go to Adams. A lateral move as Adams freshman coach and worked with Dave Hadaway and Michael Tulski there for about 6 or 7 years. And then big, massive teacher layoff in 1982. Elmer Britton got laid off as a football coach at South Bend Clay. I was the last teacher with the highest senior. I had 14 years. Got bumped out of the building and was going to be a junior high social studies teacher at Jackson Middle School or something. And then the opportunity presented itself when they decided to then hire Nat Pittman, who had been assigned, he was at Washington. They assigned him to Clay High School. He's going to be an assistant coach. And I'm trying to think what the situation. He was going to be an assistant coach, football and basketball. Well, then George Griffith left LaSalle and went to Richmond. So then they hired Nat at South Bend LaSalle. It opened up the teaching slot for me to go to Clay. And then I had the opportunity then to work with Tom Hess for 3 years, then Tommy DeBates. Hess resigned after he won the sectional in '85, And Bob Million always told me if he'd have stayed on as the principal, because he left and went to Elkhart Central,
Right.
he says he would have been my choice, but that didn't work out. And I still worked with Tommy DeBates then for 3 years, and then Bill Schlent was removed as the AD, and Mike Harding hired me on as the AD, and probably in the long run it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me in terms of going into the administration of the entire program, and was responsible for everything top to bottom, all 18 sports, and enjoyed that.
One of the most unique things here, Coach Heck, is that both of our coaches have been athletic directors and saw their schools and their people that they help hire or help administrate win state championships. Ben Karasiak, he'll tell you right to your face that he taught Chris Giesman everything he knows,
Absolutely,
right? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
and Coach Humnicky will tell you right. I mean, the only reason Tom DeBates won a state championship at South Bend Clay and the Colonials was because of the direction that he gave them right there. So I want to go back, and all joking aside, those were rare moments historically in your respective communities. Ben, I know that when Chris really got that program going, it was an amazing stretch that they were there, and they won 3 consecutive state championship there in the mid-'90s. They were just on a tear. And then everything just kind of exploded once Penn started to grow and grow. But let's talk about working with some of those great Penn coaches. I know you were very, very prominent in hiring Corey Oman, who is currently the head football coach. So talk about being the AD at Penn and some of those neat coaches you had a chance to work with.
Well, Chris was just an amazing individual, outstanding coach. The thing about him is he was so organized and detail. I mean, he never took anybody for granted. I remember my first year, we were playing somebody that hadn't won a football game in 3 years, and Chris was sitting down there on the sidelines, and I thought, well, I'll go down and talk to him, see what he's got to say. So I go down, and he's telling me that this team's got one of the best running backs. He's going to be a 1,000-yard rusher and all this kind of stuff. And he just never took anything for granted. The other thing that Chris really impressed me with was the fact that and I don't know how many people really know that he's got a heart the size of a mountain. I mean, he is really a kind individual. He's got a very loud bark, but I'll tell you what, down deep inside, he's extremely passionate for kids. He's a bright man, and I'll tell you what, he really knows how to run a program, and the proof's in the pudding. I mean, the guy's won 5 state championships, and he's just he's a great coach. And we had Dean Foster, another one, took us to the state championship in 2001. That was a great year for us. 2001, we went state finals in volleyball. Didn't win it, but we're there. We go to football, 2001. We win it. We go to basketball. We get beat by Pike with Chris Thomas in the final game. And then baseball is won by Greg Dykes. We went wire to wire with, great kids. Outstanding coaches, Greg Dykes, Dean Foster, Chris. It's just it's an amazing place when you look at the people that they've had in the coaching ranks there.
And Greg, for you, I mean, obviously South Bend's so hungry for a state basketball championship, and I know I've shared this story with you because I was still working in Northwest Indiana and still do for Football Fridays, but I was doing basketball, and as the voice of the Duneland Conference, I had a chance to watch that Valparaiso team do some amazing things, including get to the state championship game, and then Jerron Cornell comes in and makes that key shot at the end of the thing, and the next thing you know, amazing situation. But you had a chance to be a part of that, and you also had, in my opinion, the most underrated coach in Indiana football history.
Mike Kuntz,
the head football coach, was there. Was a tremendous ambassador for the game of football. And, of course, the long story that Jason Kuntz played a pivotal role in our lives as well as upon our staff.
Well, in fact, Mike's supposed to go. If the weather holds, he's going to go with me to the Ohio State game this weekend. I called him, invited him to go down with me, and everything's iffy on the weather. If it's going to rain, he's a fair weather fan, I guess.
Okay. But what was it like having a chance to work with
Well, that was great because I didn't have to hire him because he was hired a year before I became AD, and then he coached another year after I retired, so coached 22 years, and I was inside the 20 years there. I was 80, so I didn't have to worry about hiring a football coach. And we were successful because we had a lot of those guys, a lot of the assistants were in our building.
Sure.
And that wasn't the case in all the other schools. And, we had, Danny Casper and Chip O'Neill and, Billy Furbringer came back after being a head coach, and Tom King. And so we had some great folks there at Clay. And by having those people in the building, you always, you could always be tracking kids and keeping them out of trouble and, watching their grades and that type of thing. So, I consider that a plus. That's why we were successful, because we had coaches in the building, and whereas in other South Bend schools that wasn't always the case.
Once again, Greg Humnicky, our special guest. Glad to have also here Ben Karasiak. Ron and I'll return with more of the Coach's Box Legend Edition number 9. We'll be right back after this 60-second timeout. Welcome back here on 91.1 FM The Globe. Paul Condry along with Coach Ron Hecklinski. We welcome you to Legends of the Game series. It's a privilege to be here at Beef O'Brady's here in Granger, Indiana. Thanks to them for their long-standing support. Special thanks to my good friend Dave Reisner, who really kind of had the vision of bringing us up here to be a part of this. Greg, I know, and Ben, you probably remember for many, many years we were kind of rotating between Applebee's and some of those places. And it was a lot of fun to be able to do that. But we're glad that Dave Reisner has played such a pivotal role. Coach Heck, I know you've got some thoughts from the guys.
One of the things that I'd like to ask you guys is I know how it would be, or how it was when I was coaching. Let's say at Anderson High School, and the things that I had to go through with my athletic director, who was really a great guy, a guy named Jack Macy, and I remember, and so I remember when he first hired me. I'm coaching at Ball State, and I'm sitting in my office, and a couple guys come in and they say, "Hey, do you know who the 3 guys are at Anderson? The top 3 guys?" And I said, "No, I'm playing coy," and so they give me 3 names, and I'm not one of the names, obviously. They give me 3 names. And so they leave. I slam my door, and I get Jack Macy on the phone. I said, "Jack," "this is Heck." I said, I had the best interview there. I said, I hit every point. I even showed you my Sweet 16 ring. You thought that ring was great, Jack. I'm hearing that I'm not in the final 3. And he says, "Heck, hold on." And I said, "Jack, don't give me that hold on stuff. I'm the guy, and I'm the guy." And he said, "Hold on." And I said, "Come on, Jack." And he said, "What are you doing at 8 o'clock tonight?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "I'm taking your name to the board tonight at 8 o'clock. So before I even got the Anderson job, I'm into it with my AD. Now, and he was wonderful. Jack Macy was wonderful. Think back to your times as athletic directors, and think back to maybe some of the coaches who you had to rein in, or who were emotional. And once you got them set down, everything was great. But I had great, relationships, but I was really emotional. Did you have any guys like that at Ben?
Oh yes, yeah. I can, right off the top of my head, Dean tested me a lot as the basketball coach. I can see him standing there, and the veins in his neck would just bulge out as he was letting the official have it, and that was an interesting situation with him. But I'll tell you what, with him it was. Once the ball went up, that's the frame of mind that he went into that mode, that competitive mode. And once the game was over, I don't care if he won by 15 or if he lost by 1. He came down to earth, and he was the nicest guy you could ever talk to. And that always surprised me, that what caused that in him. But that was one guy that really gave me a run for my money. I'll tell you that.
Greg, how about you?
I had Chip O'Neill was my baseball coach.
Yeah.
We had hired him from St. Joe, and Chip, was always, he was active, as a coach, and did a hell of a job. Danny Casper helped him, but I always used to Chip used to get on my nerves a little bit because he wouldn't pay his bills. And so I remember when I retired, they had a dinner for me out at ZB Falcons, and I got up there and I said, "Okay, Chip O'Neill, Linda, you pay the bills in the house, right?" And I get a kind of an answer. Yeah, I said, because he never paid his bills with me. So I'm always bailing them out. So, and I had a couple other people, Al Hartman hired him as my wrestling coach. Was a young pup right out of college, and he's now the athletic director at Clay in its final year, and always enjoyed working with him. He knew how to run a wrestling program, and that put Clay wrestling on the map for us. Although we had always had strong wrestling program individuals previous to that, but we had a couple of state champions, and so I had good relationship with my coaches. I always thought, I'm here to be your advocate, so don't screw it up, otherwise you'll be hearing from the principal.
I thought you were going to say Joe Huppenthal.
Well, Joe was he could be a handful at times.
Yes, he could.
We had to, there was a couple. He had a couple of issues. We had to, Chad Hudnell had to step in and help us at a couple of times when Joe had to take some time off, but yeah, he won a couple of sectionals there at Clay and was a fiery guy. In fact, when it got down to hiring him, he almost didn't take the job. We had to get on the phone again in Dr. Calvin's office downtown at the school administration building and call him again and say, hey, Chip, you get your butt over here. You're going to be our coach. So he came, and things changed in South Bend, and I think by him going back to Lake Central was probably a good career move for him because things were not the same, as they were when he got started at Clay.
I'm going to talk about the landscape changes as you've seen the communities that you guys have been in. Greg, let me start with you. And you've seen, I look back on your career and being a part of that Central team, and then of course growing up, and you've dedicated your life to the South Bend School Corporation. And we've seen so many changes, whether it be at the top all the way through. And now I know that South Bend Clay is going to be closing. I was so happy they got their first football win the other night.
Yes,
That was so important, I think, for the big picture. But when you look back on it, does it leave you a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth, knowing that Clay is closing, and some of the decisions that downtown has made? Now I know you're actively involved in the Alumni Association, but I just want you to be straight up with this. I mean, some of the stuff, the decisions that they made downtown are head scratchers to me.
Well, I think you go all the way back to 2002 when Dr. Rain was here, when she opened it up and allowed the magnet programs to get started. There was a controversy over the program that was going to be at Clay High School. The teachers wanted to be the engineering, science, technical school, and the principal made the decision to be the visual and performing arts school and open enrollment, and I think that's the beginning of the decline. Up until that time, up until 2002 or 3 or so, we consider ourselves the best school in the South Bend School Corporation, athletically and scholastically, in terms of the scholar athletes that we had and the standings of the NIC All Sports Rate. Although Penn dominated that, but we were the best one in South Bend. And with open enrollment, people out in Clay Township opted to send their kids to Adams instead of Clay, or Marion or St. Joe. And so when you look at the demographics now, 40% of the public school, high school kids in Clay Township are going to Adams.
Yeah, so that's the thing with me when I look at the kids that went to LaSalle and lived right across the street from LaSalle and then had to be bused maybe out to Clay or out to Washington.
Yeah.
It took the neighborhood schools out of play.
Yeah. And my solution to the declining enrollment out there would have been to combine Clay and Adams and make Clay the freshman academy for Adams like they did in Elkhart. But nobody listened to my point. Jim Seitz advocated it, but they want to spend the money that they have from the COVID money that they've got in the bank. They want to create that vocational technical program, and so somebody said, well, why don't you put that program at Clay High School? Well, it's not in the city limits.
Right.
So the whole question of what's going to happen out there, I don't know. It's out of my hands, and I'm just glad I had a great time when my 26 years at Clay High School, and we'll see what happens.
Ben, I want you to take me back. I mean, you were watching from afar how the Penn was growing, because you were coaching at Marion. Of course, you went to LaSalle, and then you see the situation. But Penn has grown exponentially, both physically. There was so much potential, and I think we're seeing just the tip of the iceberg, because this is going to happen to New Prairie now. I think we're going to see that go. They're eventually, I think they're going to be in one of those 6A schools maybe in a decade or so. But
certainly could.
As you look at the way this evolved for you, and you were right in the middle of all this growth, and you saw this school corporation just kind of go. As you look back on it, is there some things that happened along the way that you said, hey, man, we shouldn't have done that, or maybe we should have done this better? I'm asking you to be a little bit of an armchair quarterback here. I know that's not always fair, but in hindsight, has there been some things back in the day you would change?
Well, I don't know if there are things that I would change. I came in 1997, and Rob McNaughton was the superintendent. He hired me. He stayed for 1 year and left for out east. And then we ran into a situation where there were 2 or 3 interim superintendents, and that kind of slowed some things down. Vicki Markovich came on board as the permanent superintendent. She didn't do anything to hurt us, but she didn't do anything to really help us, And 2003, that's when everything changed. And Dr. Jerry Thacker came on as our superintendent, and man, I'll tell you what, things really started to move under his leadership, and and that's continued to today. There was a time when on our varsity football field, and this is at Penn High School, we had to play JV and freshman games on half of the field because of the drainage. It was terrible, and there was no one there to really help us. And I thought, I'll probably never see anything change in my career. But when Jerry came in, he immediately started talking about artificial turf and making some improvements at the baseball field and on and on and on. And they're in the process of putting together a field house now. It's going to be off of Bittersweet, and the place is just growing number-wise, support-wise. The booster board and the club is taking off, and things are just really moving over there, and it's all positive stuff.
I've been doing college basketball for 25 years in addition to all the high school basketball stuff that I've been doing for 35 years, and the facilities at Penn are as good as any of the colleges that I've been around. So when we come back after the timeout, a couple questions for you guys. I want you to talk about the days as athletes. We're going to get in that Wayback Machine. Maybe we'll get that little car that's out, Back to the Future car, the DeLorean. Coach Heck and I are going to take a ride in the DeLorean when we come back after the timeout with our special guests here, Ben Karasiak, as well as the legendary Greg Humnicky. We'll be back with more after the 60-second timeout from Beef O'Brady's on Regional Radio Sports. Welcome back here on Regional Radio Sports. Thanks for everybody for joining us here on episode 3 of season 2 of the Legends of the Game. Ben Karasiak here to my right, across the table, Coach Ron Hecklinski, as well as Greg Humnicky. Great to have both of our guys. Ben, let me talk about the time for you as a high school athlete and high school athletics. And since you guys are actively involved as athletic directors and coaches, you understand the dynamics on how important leadership is in the big picture of the life of a college as well as a high school athlete, since you were actively involved. Recently, as of this week, we celebrated National Coaches Day. Right. If you guys understand that dynamic. So this week, I thought about it, and I said, I'm going to send a couple letters out to some of the coaches who were pivotal in my development as a high school athlete, or lack thereof. But these guys were just life changers for me. So, Ben, I want you to take me back to those days at LaSalle High School. And, boy, what an amazing group of guys. Donnie Monhood, Marilyn Coddens, Bill Sharp. Am I missing somebody else in that group?
Tommy
DeBates. Oh, my goodness. That's a legendary class in itself, all at the same school. So take me back to the people, those coaches, those teachers who made a difference that you would, if you had a chance right now, whether they're alive or not, you'd like to sit down and have dinner with them or go out to breakfast and have a cup of coffee or an adult beverage, whatever the case may be, and just tell them how much you appreciate them. Who would it be?
Well, in the high school level, I'm going to go back a step. I was a freshman at South Bend Central and played JV baseball. And John McNarney was truly my first real baseball coach. I mean, somebody that knew something about the game, taught things, and you know, fundamentally just did an outstanding job. And I appreciated you know, playing for him. And certainly at LaSalle, you know, we had Jerry Klaber, who I stayed close to throughout his entire life. You know, he passed away a few years ago. As a matter of fact, I took him his dinner the Tuesday before he passed, and you know, he was always prominent in my life. And then there's Phil Teagarden, who, you know, is just an outstanding coach. Fundamental Phil is what we called him, and you know, he lit a fire under you, and you know, there are other people. You know, Ross Stevenson was park director. He wasn't my coach, but you know, he was my first contact with athletics at the park, and just a great guy, and somebody I wanted to emulate. I mean,
Sure.
I really liked the way he handled kids, the way he talked to kids. And then I saw him at Central, and as my freshman as a PE teacher, and I thought to myself, gee, do I have to call him Mr. Stevenson, or do I call him Ross?
Yeah.
So I called him Ross. And it was just, you know, people like that. My college baseball coach, Wayne Boldinghouse, I learned a lot from him. You know, those people have a tremendous impact on you. You don't really realize it at the time, but as you move on, and that's
Sure.
why I became a teacher, you know, because I wanted to be like those people, you know.
Greg, how about you? I mean, take me back to the Wayback Machine at Central High School, and then as you came through.
One of my mentors that I always looked up was Jim Powers. Was the head basketball coach at Central. I played 2 years, freshman, sophomore year, and got cut off the varsity the week of Thanksgiving, and he had too many players, and I was a slow white kid, you know, and Mike Warren was a little bit better than me.
Yeah, really good.
Hey, Michael Jordan got cut a sophomore year too,
That's
man.
true.
Come on.
And anyway, but Jim and he became the athletic director, coach. He went to Rochester, and he went to Elkhart Memorial when it opened up, and worked some football games. I was a high school football official for 15 years before I became an AD, but always looked up to Jim, and in my retirement time, when I retired in 2008, he was the director emeritus of the Basketball Hall of Fame, and I became his chauffeur to go to the meetings in Newcastle, and had a great time with him. And his wife Marilyn was my wife's second grade teacher at Measle, and in Maryland remembered my wife as a student.
Wow.
So that was fantastic. So Jim was always special. Another guy that was special that I met after I got out of, I was in school, I saw that Purdue was starting their basketball camps in the summer, and I just, by the whim, wrote a letter to Bob King, who was an assistant athletic director, who was actually becoming an assistant AD at the time. I just said, hey, are you looking for anybody? Hey, come on down. And so very first year of the basketball game, I worked for 15 straight years, 3 or 4 weeks each summer, and loved working down there. Met a lot of people, learned a lot about the game of basketball. Creighton Burns and guys like that, they came back every year. I treasured that. But Bob was always special. He wrote letters for me to get positions, and he and Gene Cady made a phone call to Monty Shriver, and I think helped me get the AD job, at Clay High School. And
Coach, you've got some of those people.
Yeah.
Who were some of those people in your life? Who would you sit down and write a letter to right now and say, if it wasn't for what you did, I wouldn't be here today?
Well, so I think initially when I was young, it would be my dad because my dad coached me at St. John's, and my dad coached all my brothers at St. John's, and he coached me, and showed me how to do things. The way I remember my 7th grade year. I'm starting on the 8th grade team, and everybody on the ball club has got white high-top Chucky Taylors, right? I got white high-top Kmart shoes. Now, my dad's a dentist, right? And my dad can afford to buy me a pair of Chucky Taylors. And I say, Dad, I said, come on, man. I said, is there any way I can get some Chucky Taylors? And he said, I'm going to tell you this, Ronnie. And I mean no disrespect to Kmart, but you got a Kmart game right now. I'll never get him saying that to me, and didn't crack a smile. And he said, you start working harder, and I'll get you some Chucky Taylors. And so 2 or 3 weeks, I go in and I'm busting it, and I get my shoes. So my dad taught me so many little things like that along the way. And then I grew up in a coaching family with Mickey and Donnie, and then both of those guys were great athletes, and they showed me how to do it, and they went into coaching. And so obviously I was really close with them, their coaching staffs. When Ben and Reisner and Ferretti and all those guys were on that staff of Marion, I was hanging and doing stuff with those guys all the time and watching how you do things. And so I learned a lot from those two people. But then my high school coach, Bob Donewald, really showed me the way in how to do it. And he was tough. He was mean. He was he coached under Bobby Knight for a long time and got the head coaching job at Illinois State. And so he brings me to Illinois State as an assistant coach. And it was the hardest experience I've ever been through, but he taught me so much, and so those three guys. But I also made that circuit of all the colleges where young kids would go and work in the summer times. One of the guys that I met when I first did it was Dean Foster, and Dean Foster put his arm around me and took me around and showed me things and showed me some good things and showed me some things that were a lot better too. I mean, he was great. Dean was great, and we had a chance to bring Dean when Ben was the athletic director at Penn. We had a chance to bring Dean and the Penn basketball team over to play in a basketball game at the Wigwam. And I mean, talk about that game, Ben.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Ronnie's giving me a hard time because I wanted him to come up here and play, or go 2 years home and home, and he's no. He says, we're good enough. We don't need to do that. We're going to play people at home. I'm not traveling. So we said, all right, we'll go down and play you guys. So we came down, and that was the year that we went to the state championship game. We had Maudlin Laird, Justin Smith, Marcus Husband. We had a really good team, and Jimmy Maudlin pops one from about 3-point range to beat the Anderson Indians in the Wigwam
with 1
second to go. That was it. It was a good time
for us. And so after the game, Ben says, "Are you sure you don't want to come up to Penn and maybe avenge that game?" And I said,
what'd you say?
I said, "No, take those 18 pizzas and get the hell out, man." We got beat. I was the best, and I don't know how you guys were. It took me a long time to get over games. I mean, when I coached and you put all what you put into all the film study, everything that you do, and it really took me a hard time to get over losses. Now,
I agree. I was talking to Mia McComish, who's interning for me. She's a senior on the Concord girls soccer team, and I told her today, I guess it was yesterday. I says, I hate losing more than I like winning. I mean, that was just always been my mentality. And you guys are all nodding your heads because I think you all feel the same way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Winning solves a lot of problems, man. I'll tell you, it's a good thing.
Losing reveals character.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it's the only way you're going to get any better. And we're going to take our final time out. We're going to come back and we're going to continue our conversation with our very, very special guest. Great to have, once again, Ben Karasiak, of course, a member of the Indiana Football Hall of Fame. Great to have him here. Great to have, of course, our good friend Greg Humnicky, of course, who's been an ambassador for high school basketball through the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, as well as part of the great South Bend South Bend Alumni Association Board of Directors. So we're going to come back with Greg, and I'll try not to be tongue-tied when we come back out of the break. We'll be back after this on Regional Radio Sports. Welcome once again here on Regional Radio Sports. Glad that you can join us here on 91.1 FM The Globe. And, of course, if you're viewing this a little bit later on our Regional Radio Sports Network YouTube channel, we're thankful again to Andrew Kirksey and Tanner Camp for their great work here on the program tonight. Alongside Coach Ron Hecklinski, great to have him here as we get through our next edition of the Legends. We've got some great ones in the works planned, but we're great to have Ben Karasiak and Greg Humnicky here in case you're just hopping along. I know it's story time, Coach, and I know we want to hear some stories from these guys, but one of the things I wanted to start this thing out, I know that, Greg, that you've been a big fan of the legendary John Wooden a long time, and I know that. I remember when the IHSAA had John Wooden here, I got a chance to sit down and have lunch with John Wooden with several other people. I still have John Wooden's signature on one of my Indiana basketball books, as well as one of those cards, and that's one of the. And I got a lot of stuff in our museum. Make no mistake about that one. But he was pretty special.
Yes, he was. He came back, I think, in 2005. His final trip back to South Bend, and had the McDonald's All-Star game at Notre Dame.
Right.
And the South Bend Athletic Department had a luncheon with the 80s in South Bend, plus some of his former players that were still in the area. And we had a luncheon at Notre Dame. Nan Tolchinsky organized it. And Jimmy Powers was there, of course. And I had Wooden autographed his coaching book, Practical Modern Basketball, autographed that for me. And I got to tell you a real quick story. He mentioned when he spoke to everybody, he says, I would trade one of my national championship rings for an Indiana state championship ring, because when he won it in the 27 at Martinsville, they only gave him like little trophies. And so when I was up there having him sign my book, I said, "Hey, Coach, this is what a ring looks like." He calls Eddie Powell, who was one of his assistants at UCLA and was a manager for him in South Bend. He says, Eddie, come here. Here's a ring. Here's a ring. So I got a kick out of that. But he was fantastic. We got a DVD of that entire luncheon and when he spoke. And he was just fantastic.
One of the greatest ambassadors of all time.
Yeah. So I got one for you too. In 2004, so I was the McDonald's All-American coach. I mean, I had LeBron on that team, and everybody knows that. And so John Wooden is always a big part of that game. He's always there. Yeah. So I'm sitting there. They introduce me, and he comes up to me and he says, "Hecklinski," and I said, "Yeah." He said, "Was your dad one of the two twins that played for South Bend, Washington when I played, or when I was the head coach at Central?" And he said they were twins. And I said, "Yeah, my dad was the lefty." And he said, "Oh, your dad could play." He said, "Your dad had this left-handed hook shot that was out of this world." And so, like all of our dads, right? Yeah. My dad would tell me that. So I said, "Yeah, Dad, sure, you had a left-handed." "Sure, Dad, right." So my dad wasn't doing well at that time. Yeah. And I called home. And I said, "Ma, put Dad on the phone." And he couldn't talk very well then. And I said, "Dad, John Wooden just validated your hook shot today." And my mom said,
"Great story.
I don't know what you said, but he's got the biggest smile on his face." Now, John Wooden sat there and said, "Hey, I can tell you all 9 of my starters on the baseball team," because John Wooden was the head baseball coach at Central.
Yeah, they won a conference title.
I said, "Coach, that was like 100 years ago," and he's 90 at this time. Yeah. And he said, I've always remembered that because there were 9 Polish kids. And he went through the list. Lenny Rozeski, the Molnars. And he was amazing, to be honest. And he loved South Bend. He loved his time in South Bend.
We always said that if the war hadn't come along, he probably wouldn't have left. He would have stayed.
Ben, I'm going to go back to the LaSalle days with that unbelievable group of athletes and successful people. You look at let's just talk about Bill Sharp. I mean, that guy in his own right, Donnie Monhoot, and my longtime friend Dwayne Lewandowski's dad, Harry, was the athletic director, and
outstanding individual.
And I've heard people in this business say that Harry Lewandowski hung the star on the tree, per se, because he set the bar for what athletic directors were supposed to be all about. And both you guys are nodding your heads. So let's talk about Harry Lewandowski and the kind of the impact, as well as that amazing group of athletes that you grew up with.
Yeah, he's another one that I should have mentioned earlier, because I never had him for class, but you would see him out in the hallway and he'd always have a smile on his face, always say something to you. And that meant a lot to, he'd call you by your first name and you think, wow, this guy, must care about me, and that's the kind of image that he projected. And he just cared about people. He was a LaSalle Lion. I know he came over from the home of the Panthers, but down deep inside, once he made that change, he was a Lion, and he really cared about what was going on.
Back in those days, they taught a half day.
Right.
He was an English teacher.
Yeah.
At LaSalle, yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine teaching even a partial load and try to do all the sports. So as you go back to that group of athletes that was at LaSalle, how special was it? And had I asked you as a high school athlete this question, what do you think these guys are going to end up doing in their lives? Would you ever even, in your wildest dreams, thought that they would have the laundry list of success?
No, I was fortunate enough to go through high school with Bill Sharp and Donnie Monhoot, and we hung around together a little bit. But it wasn't until we went on to Rock Valley Junior College that's when the things really started to blend together. The three of us were there with Pat Sousley, another LaSalle kid, Chip Newman, another LaSalle kid. And I remember vividly, we lived in an apartment, and somehow we got upstairs and sat up on the roof, and we'd sit there and just talk and think, what in the world's going to become of us? What are we going to do? And so it turned out that all three of us ended up at the University of Evansville and got into coaching, and here we are. Bill has just done. I remember when he took the job at Jimtown, and he called me, and I could tell you he was nervous as a cat could be. I mean, he's stepping in there for Gene Skirvin. Well, he's stepping in for Gene Skirvin. He was a legend at Jimtown, and Bill comes in there, and now things just start to turn. The class system made it available for them to move on in the tournament. He wins 4 state championships. He's a great guy. He treats people so well, and very popular guy because of the way he treats people, treats his kids. With him, you get absolutely. There's no phoniness about him. He's not plastic. He is what he is, and he doesn't no ego. Doesn't put on any airs, and he's a heck of a football coach. Smart guy.
I had the opportunity. His older brother Bob Sharp was South Bend policeman, but I played junior high football with him at Madison Junior High. And knew Bob, and sadly Bob passed away a couple years ago. But Bill and I still talk about that. And I ran into another relative in one of the Forever Learning Institute classes that knew my name. So I felt honored. But Sharps were a great family.
Do you guys think that you could? I'm going to ask you to be 25 and getting this career started. I want you to take me back and then fast forward into this woke society that we have developed in this country. Could you guys be as successful today in 2023 as you were during the course of your careers, coaching and leading and administrating and doing the things that you were successful at in today's society? Are kids the same? Ben, let me start with you.
Well, I think kids work, very hard today. I know when talking to the old timers, they say, well, these kids don't work that hard. They don't work that hard. But, hey, they work harder than anybody has. They work harder than we did when we were in school, and they spend a lot of time at it. You really have to be lucky. You have to have some good athletes. And it takes a lot of skill to get there. And unfortunately, in today's day and age, the parents may be involved a little bit too much, and that can really slow things down. It really can, and that's why I say winning solves a lot of problems. Because if you can win, those people won't have a whole lot to say. But unfortunately, they try to get into the business of sending their kids to specialized coaches, and then that creates issues within a certain program that you're running, and it's a lot of that outside negativity or distraction from what you're trying to accomplish as a coach.
Kids are kids. I think what's changed are the role of parents and their they try to live their lives through their kids' athletic accomplishments, and they won't let the kids be kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's
And every parent wants their kids to go on to college, get a scholarship, and too many people thinking D1 is the answer. D1 is the answer. And it's not the answer. You got to go to a place where you can play, get a good education, and enjoy yourself. You'll be a lot happier doing that than putting yourself under those kinds of pressures to try to perform at the D1 level. And very few people have the ability.
I mean, I've just coming out of coaching now. I've been retired for a year or so, and I mean, kids do work hard.
Absolutely.
They play far more basketball than I ever played because of AAU. Now has AAU helped them or hurt them? I think there's a lot of points both ways on that. But I know this much: I know the high school coach used to play a really big role in those athletes' lives. But now I think the AAU coach plays a big role in their life. I think the personalized trainers play a big part in their life, and I think their dads play a big part in their life because he's paying 1 and 2.
Well, I've talked with Bob Berger and his son Rob at Marion. When Jaden Ivey played there, the AAU coach took care of the recruiting. Rob was hardly, he was along for the ride, and I think that's. Sometimes that can be a good thing, and sometimes it can be a bad thing at that point. So,
yeah.
When you look back and over the landscape of your careers, there's got to be some moments that you cherish the most. I don't know whether it be as an administrator, could just be in a dad, could be as a coach, an athlete. Ben, you look at some of those cherished moments in your life. What were some of the things that you cherished the most? Or was it just relationships?
Well, I can think of one right off the top of my head here that it's a basketball thing. When I was growing up, you had to watch the basketball tournament on TV. Yes. I mean, that was just what you had to do. And that was a great time, week in and week out. And, when we went down to the state finals in 2001, and I got to stand on the floor and receive a medal at that site, at that function, that hit me. Man, I tell you, I thought, wow, this is, I never thought this would happen to me as a kid. I watched all this, and now here I am. Yeah. So that was really
special. It was the same thing in '94. I remember that game, with about a minute to go. I said, hey, how am I going to have to handle this runner-up stuff? All of a sudden, we hit a couple buckets, and Cornell gets it and sends it in overtime. And and in the videotape of the game, I'm at the end of the bench, I'm jumping up, and a little funny story. The I-Say commissioners were sitting right next to our team bench. Mildred Ball was there and Ray Kraft. Mildred was so excited when Jerron hit that shot, and Ray Kraft just stoic as
as always.
And so that was one moment. I really fantastic.
An athletic director at the end of a bench.
Yeah,
Fathead didn't like that, did he? Not that AD at the end of the bench.
He was sitting in plays on a piece of
man. So I'm going to throw a couple names at you. Lloyd and Floyd Kerr.
Oh yeah.
Back Washington back in the day. Bobby Johnson.
Oh, those were the days, man. I tell you, Mike Warren, Jimmy Ward, Kurt Curtington, the center, Michael Talski. Yeah. Greg, you were there for that. Man, oh man, that was. That was great stuff.
An interesting story about that. The week of the state finals in '63, Notre Dame. Central practiced at Notre Dame in the mornings. But the week of the state finals, he got booted out of the old field house at Notre Dame before the ACC was built because they had to set up the arena for the bingo bouts. Jim didn't have a place to practice. He ended up practicing at Jefferson Junior High School.
My, oh my.
Because all the high schools were busy with their track and baseball team inside, so if he would have gone to a high school, it'd been there like at 10 o'clock at night or something.
We got 2 minutes left, so I want you to, right now the Northern Indiana Conference is in a situation of, are they going to move? Are they going to expand? We got teams leaving, teams going. And you guys have both been a part of the Northern Indiana Conference, a good portion of your administrative lives. Can you speak to, if you had a chance, and Greg, you're the historian for the Northern Indiana Conference, and no one knows this better than I do, but we've got about 2 minutes left. But give us an idea on the high youth. If you had a chance to fix the Northern Indiana Conference, or does it need fixing, what would you do?
Well, right now, next year, we're planning on 8 schools, and we've got schedules developed in all sports for the next 4 or 5 years. and we're going to play round robin in football, and then we'll go round robin in tennis and soccer, whereas we were in divisional stuff and partial schedules. So I think we've solidified with the 8 schools, and I don't envision those 8 schools that are be in the conference next year. I don't envision anything changing. Unless Mishawaka were to decide to come back. I was really disappointed when Mishawaka left the conference. I just felt that was.
I would agree with you.
At that
I don't have a dog in the fight.
Well, they were one of the charter members
right.
of the institution, so that was disappointing. So I don't know if that'll change or not. But I think with the 8 schools they've got, I think the conference is in pretty good shape.
Ben, you thought?
Well, I think that it's key to keep everybody together now.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to play in the conference. You don't want to go an independent route because that is difficult to schedule and it's no fun, and it creates a lot of problems with travel and so forth. So, I'm hoping that they stick together and continue to maybe even grow. That would be nice if you could pick somebody else up along the line. I don't know who that would be, but that's my concern. They got to stay together.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for all the things that you've done for Coach and I. Ben, through the many years, all the projects we get to do at Penn High School. Greg, so many great times at South Bend. Give my best to Mike Kuntz,
Will do, yes.
as always. And Ben, as always, great to be with you.
Yeah, loved having you guys.
Yeah, enjoyed
It's been
it.
a blast. Once again, that's going to do it for our program here tonight. Once again, Greg Humnicky, so glad to have him, member of the South Bend Alumni Association. Of course, part of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, and of course, a big proponent of what South Bend athletics has been. And of course, once again, special thanks to Ben here. Ben, member of the Indiana Football Hall of Fame, Evansville Hall of Fame, and 2 great men who've just made an amazing impact on the lives and the coaches that they have come encountered with during the course of their careers. We hope they enjoy their weekend of college football. And once again, Ron and I'll return again. But next week, we'll go back to our regularly scheduled program with the Coaches Box. Once again, thanks again to everyone here at Beef O'Brady's. For Andrew Kirksey, Tanner Campmia, and Tanya, for all of us at Regional Radio Sports, I'm Paul Condry. God bless you all. Semper Fidelis. Good night, everyone.